In this segment, what I want to talk about are the error messages that come from ghci and how we can make sense of them, even if we don't understand precisely what they're saying. The syntax and indeed the general design of programming languages is always a compromise between making them as readable and straightforward as possible and there being some sort of ambiguity in the way that they are used. And that means that we can get things wrong, either because we don't understand or simply accidentally by hitting the wrong key. And we need to understand the error messages that we get from the compiler. So let's take a look at these. And I think it's one of those things where the more you try it, the more you practice, the more you begin to understand how to make sense and how to use the error messages to make to help you improve your programs, to help you fix the problems. So let's start off. So what I've done here is I've asked ghci, what is the value of abs? And if you remember, abs is a function which tells you the absolute value of a number. It removes the minus sign, in other words. Now, if you remember when we talked about printing values out, one of the things I said was that you can't print out functions. And indeed, this is telling us in the way that it's formulated inside Haskell, that's the case. It's saying there is no instance for show of integer arrow integer. That means that integer arrow integer is not in the show class. That is, we can't turn a function in general into a string. We can't print a function like abs. So when you see a message like no instance for show, that's saying I can't print. And you can see we have got a function that goes from integer to integer, so that's fine. It's told us we're trying to print out the value of something which is not printable. And there is a hint there. The maybe is saying, maybe you haven't applied a function to enough arguments. And that's true. In that case, we're trying to print a function. So perhaps what we should have done was apply it to one argument and get the result that we wanted. Okay, let's do that. Let's apply it to -12. Oh my goodness, we get the same error message. Now that is, sometimes compiler designers don't get things right, and I think here they're missing a trick. But what it's seeing is, it's seeing that I think I've still got a function here, and that's because if you remember, the thing on the left hand side of the minus sign is a function, and it's thinking, oh, this whole thing is a function. But it's really not the case we haven't applied a function to enough arguments. The problem is we should have put that -12 in parentheses. So it's telling us something is wrong. It's somehow interpreting that thing as being the whole thing meaning a function, but it takes a bit of ingenuity to work out why it thinks that. Let's look at another version of this. Suppose I do that abs -12, and I check to see whether it's equal to 2. Now, we're getting a different message. It's saying no instance for num integer arrow integer. That means it can't view functions from integers to integers as if they were numbers. We can't add functions from integer to integer together, for example. And that's because it's got a use of minus. Now, what it's saying, if you look, it's giving details in a second bullet point. It's saying where this problem has. It's the first argument of equals, that's abs -12, in the expression abs -12 is equal to. So it's saying there is this thing that's wrong, and it's printing out abs -12. And that should, I hope, be enough to point out to us, oh, my goodness, it's interpreted this wrongly. There's a minus sign there. It's trying to subtract 12 from a function. So it shows us how the compiler has understood what we have written. And in that sense, it's helpful. The hint again isn't helpful. But in fact, I've shown you the first error message. There is indeed a second error message here. which says no instance for EQ, integer to integer. And that's saying I can't compare functions from integer to integer for equality. And that's because, again, the system thinks the expression on the left-hand side of the equal sign is a function. The problem we had before. So sometimes half the information is useful, half the information isn't. Let's look at some simpler problems now. If I omit a bracket, it tells me parse error, possibly incorrect indentation or mismatched brackets. Well, there's certainly in that first one, the brackets are mismatched. It's missing the bracket that should be there at the end. What's it mean when it says incorrect indentation? Well, the answer to that is that layout, the way we lay programs out on the page, as it were, is significant to the way that they're understood. So it is formatting is significant in Haskell. In many programming languages, it doesn't matter how you format things. In Haskell, it does. And in the next segment, I'm going to talk about that in more detail. So at the moment, it's saying, oh, maybe incorrect indentation. That doesn't really apply here, but it's saying mismatched brackets. Now, if we look at the next one, we said 2 plus 3 times 4 and put an extra bracket at the end. And that's a really nice error message. It's saying, I didn't expect to get that parenthesis in position, it's on line 5 and it's in position 8, which is the second closing parenthesis. It's saying, I didn't expect that symbol. I can't work out what you're trying to say here. So it's saying precisely where the error is. So that's the significance of the 8 there. The 5 is the line in the line number. The 8 is the position in that line. So that's what those the numbers here represent. They represent the line of output, or if you're looking at an editor, the line inside the file, and the second number indicates the position on that line, the Cartesian coordinates, if you like. Now here's a very nice clear type error message. If I try to take the conjunction of the character C and the Boolean value true, it tells me I couldn't match the expected type if I'm applying AND to 2 arguments. I expect that both arguments will be Boolean. And what I'm seeing here is not that, but I'm seeing the type character. That's not what I expected. It tells you precisely where the problem is and that it's got the wrong type. So some type error messages are very clear. If we replace that character C by 2, we again hit the world of overloading. And we've got this no instance for num bool. That means bool is not in the num type class, which means we can't think of booleans as being numbers. Well, that's true. So that is helping us. We've got a number here 2, and somehow we're trying to treat it that's making us think, can we treat the booleans that we see here as if they were numbers as well? And the answer is no, not really. And I think there's a slight error on this slide. I'm saying making bool an instance of num type class would not so much say that 2 can be interpreted as a boolean. It is that booleans could be thought of as numbers, so true could be thought of as a number. So there's clearly a mismatch between numbers and booleans here, and if you look at it in a bit more detail, you can see that what we've done is we've got a problem in that we've tried to take a conjunction of a number and the boolean value true. So that's slightly less clear, but it's anytime you see a message that says no instance for num some type, it means there's a confusion between numbers and that type, in this case, Boolean. So it does tell us where the problem is. Okay. I mean, some messages couldn't be clearer, and let's conclude on a nice clear one. If I try and divide 4 by 6 minus 3 times 2, the system says no way. Sorry, I can't divide by 0.